The Confrontation, a story of love, lies, and closure. Part 1, the meeting that changed everything. I never thought I'd find myself in this position. Sitting across from Emily, my ex, the girl I once thought I'd marry, the girl who told me I was her forever. And now, she's engaged to someone else, and not just anyone. Daniel, a guy I barely knew but already hated. Why was I even here? Why did I agree to this? Maybe I wanted closure, maybe I wanted to prove something, or maybe I just wanted to see if Emily had truly moved on. But as I sat there, my palms sweating, my heart pounding like a war drum, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't ready for the answers I was about to get. The beginning of the end. It started 2 weeks ago. A random text from a mutual friend. "Hey, did you hear? Emily's engaged." At first I laughed. No way. Emily? The same Emily who told me she needed time to heal after our breakup? The Emily who said she couldn't imagine being with someone else so soon? Engaged? I thought it was a joke, until I checked her Instagram. And there it was. A picture of her and Daniel, her hand resting on his chest, a diamond ring sparkling on her finger. The caption, "When you know, you know." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. It's not like I wanted her back, but something about that post felt wrong, too fast, too forced, too fake. And that's when I made the worst decision of my life. I sent Emily a text. "We need to talk." The meeting. She agreed to meet. A neutral place. A cafe we used to go to. Except this time she wasn't coming alone. Her fiancé would be there too. That's when I knew this wasn't just a casual catch-up. This was something else. I arrived first. My stomach was in knots. I kept telling myself to leave, to walk away before I did something stupid. But before I could act, the door opened. And there she was, Emily. And next to her, Daniel. I watched as they walked in together, hand in hand, like some kind of power couple. But there was something in Emily's eyes that wasn't there before. Something that made me wonder, was she really happy? Tension rises. They sat down. Silence stretched between us like an invisible battlefield. Daniel was the first to break it. "So, Jake, why are we here?" His voice was calm, but there was a challenge hidden beneath it, like he already knew something I didn't. Emily wouldn't look at me. I cleared my throat. "I just wanted to talk to Emily, see how she's doing." Daniel smirked. "She's fine. We're fine." Something about the way he said it made my skin crawl. I turned to Emily. She still wasn't looking at me. "Is that true?" She hesitated, just for a second. But it was long enough. Daniel noticed it too. His fingers curled into a fist. "Of course she's fine," he said, a little too quickly. "She's with me now." I clenched my jaw. I knew something was off. The moment everything changed. I was about to say something when Emily finally spoke. "Jake, maybe we shouldn't do this." Her voice was softer than I remembered, almost scared. Daniel's grip on her hand tightened. "No, let's talk," I said, leaning forward. "Emily, are you really happy?" Daniel laughed. "Seriously, man?" But I ignored him. My eyes were locked on Emily. "Tell me the truth." Emily swallowed. She wanted to say something. I could see it in her face. But before she could open her mouth, Daniel spoke for her. She already did. She chose me. I could feel the rage bubbling inside me. "Emily doesn't need you speaking for her." Daniel leaned back in his chair, smirking. "You sure about that?" And then he pulled out his phone. I watched as he scrolled through something before sliding the phone across the table toward me. "Go ahead, Jake. Take a look." I hesitated, but then I saw what was on the screen, and my entire world shattered, the truth I never saw coming. It was a text conversation between Emily and someone else, and my name was all over it. "You have to stop texting Jake. It's over." I know, but I feel bad. You don't owe him anything. You chose me. I just don't want to hurt him. Then stop making it seem like you still care. I looked up at Emily. Her face was pale. What the hell is this? I demanded. She didn't answer. Daniel did. Emily didn't move on as fast as you think, Jake. She was still texting about you, talking about you, worrying about you. His voice dropped lower until I made her stop. Silence, cold, heavy, suffocating. Emily was shaking, but she still wouldn't meet my eyes. I clenched my fists. My pulse was a thunderstorm in my ears. Emily, did he make you block me? No response. Emily? Still nothing. And that's when Daniel leaned forward, his smirk finally disappearing. Jake, let me make something very clear. His voice was ice. She's mine now. And if you don't walk away, you're going to regret it. My blood ran cold. Because in that moment, I realized something. This wasn't just about a breakup. This was about control. And Emily was trapped, the trap I didn't see coming. Emily's words echoed in my head. You should go, Jake. But her eyes told me something else. I should have walked away. I should have left her alone and never looked back. But the way she hesitated, the way her fingers trembled under Daniel's grip, it was like a silent cry for help. Something was wrong. Very wrong. I left the cafe, but my mind was racing. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Why did she look so scared? Why couldn't she speak freely? And why did Daniel act like he was controlling her? It didn't sit right with me. I kept replaying every detail in my mind, searching for something I had missed. Then it hit me. Her hands, the way her fingers twitched. She wasn't just nervous, she was anxious, like someone who had been conditioned to fear speaking up. The more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Daniel wasn't just a new fiancé. He was something else. And Emily wasn't free. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept staring at my phone, debating whether to text her. Would she even be able to reply? Then, at 2:47 a.m., my phone lit up. A message from Emily. Emily, Jake, I need to talk to you, but I can't text. Meet me tomorrow, alone. My body went cold. She was reaching out? After today? Something was definitely wrong. I texted back immediately. Me. Are you okay? Did something happen? No response. I checked the message details. She had deleted it, like she was afraid someone might see it. Daniel. It had to be him. I gripped my phone so hard my knuckles turned white. Emily was trapped, and I had just been given a way in. I just had to be careful, because whatever was going on, it was much bigger than I had imagined. The meeting. The next afternoon, I arrived at the park early. It was a quiet place, trees everywhere, benches scattered under the shade, a small lake in the distance. I sat down, waiting. Minutes passed. Then I saw her, Emily. She was walking fast, her head down, her hands clenched at her sides. Her hair was pulled back in a way that looked too perfect, like someone had made sure she looked presentable. When she reached me, she sat down without a word, her shoulders tense. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then, in a whisper, she said, I don't have much time. Her voice was shaking. Emily, what's going on? I asked. She looked around nervously. Daniel, he's not who you think he is. A chill ran down my spine. Then who is he, Emily? She swallowed hard, eyes darting to the side, checking for someone, and then she said something that made my blood run cold. Jake, I never wanted to leave you. He made me. The truth starts to unravel. My heart stopped. What do you mean, he made you? I asked, leaning in. Emily's hands were trembling. After we broke up, I was a mess. You know that. I wasn't ready for anything serious, and then Daniel showed up. I clenched my fists. And her breath was shaky. She was scared to tell me. He was nice at first, supportive, always there. He made me feel like I wasn't alone. But then, she trailed off, her fingers gripping the edge of the bench. Then what, Emily? I pushed. She finally looked at me, and what I saw in her eyes made my stomach twist. Guilt, fear, pain. Then he started making decisions for me, telling me what to do, who to talk to, who to stay away from. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Emily, what are you saying? Her voice cracked. I never wanted to block you, Jake. I never wanted to cut you out. But Daniel, he didn't give me a choice. The warning I didn't listen to. I felt a fire rise in my chest. Emily, this is insane. If he's controlling you like this, why the hell are you still with him? Tears welled up in her eyes. Because he won't let me leave. My entire body went cold. I was expecting her to say something else, that she was confused, that she felt stuck, that she didn't know how to break things off. But this was different. What do you mean he won't let you? I asked. Her hands clenched into fists. I tried, Jake. I tried to leave him last month. I packed my things, told him it was over, and then he showed me something. She swallowed hard, her eyes flickering with terror. What did he show you? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She took a shaky breath. Proof that he's been watching me. I stiffened. Watching you, how? Emily hesitated, then slowly reached into her bag. She pulled out her phone, unlocked it, and handed it to me. I looked at the screen, and what I saw made my blood turn to ice. It was a photo of Emily, sleeping, taken from inside her bedroom, the evidence that changed everything. The photo on Emily's phone froze my blood. She was lying in bed, asleep, and the picture had been taken from inside her room. I stared at the image, my fingers tightening around her phone. Emily, who took this? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She swallowed hard. Who do you think? I looked up at her, disbelief and horror swirling inside me. Daniel? She nodded. My stomach dropped. I glanced back at the photo, my mind racing. This wasn't just controlling behavior anymore. This was something much, much worse. Emily, how long has he been doing this? I asked. She hesitated. Then, in a voice so quiet I almost didn't hear it, she said, Since the beginning. The signs I never saw. A wave of nausea washed over me. I tried to piece everything together. When Emily and I broke up, she was devastated. But Daniel had swooped in, playing the perfect, understanding guy. I had assumed it was just bad timing, that she had rebounded too fast. But now I was starting to realize this wasn't an accident. Emily, you need to go to the police. She let out a bitter laugh. And tell them what? That my fiancé takes creepy pictures of me while I sleep? That he's too controlling? You really think they'd do anything? She was right. Unless she had solid proof of danger, they probably wouldn't take her seriously. And Daniel, he was smart, too smart. If he had been watching her this long, he had thought of everything. I gritted my teeth. Emily, you have to get out of this. You can't marry him. Her face crumpled. You think I don't know that, Jake? You think I haven't tried? She exhaled shakily, her hands running through her hair. But every time I try to leave, he reminds me. I frowned. Reminds you of what? She hesitated. Then, in an almost broken voice, she said, that he knows everything about me. Everything I've ever done. Everything I've ever said. And that if I leave, he'll ruin me. The control goes deeper. Emily was trapped, not just physically, psychologically, emotionally. Daniel had manipulated her into believing she had no way out. I clenched my fists. Emily, listen to me. Whatever he's holding over you, we can fix it. There's always a way out. She shook her head. Not with Daniel. I exhaled sharply, trying to control the anger boiling inside me. Then let's find something on him. Let's flip this around. Emily's eyes widened. What do you mean? If he's been watching you, if he's been controlling you, then there's something he's hiding, some proof that he's dangerous. We find it, we expose him, and he loses his power over you. For the first time, I saw a flicker of hope in her eyes, but then her phone buzzed. We both froze. She slowly picked it up. Her face went pale. I glanced at the screen. A message from Daniel. Daniel, time's up. Come home, now. My entire body tensed. He knows you're here. Emily's breathing turned shaky. Jake, I have to go. I grabbed her wrist. Number. Not like this. Her eyes were wide, pleading. If I don't, he'll know something's wrong. My mind was racing. If she went back now, Daniel would be even more suspicious. He might start watching her even closer. He might isolate her completely. But if she didn't go, he might come looking. And if Daniel found us together, right now, I didn't know what he'd do. Emily stood up. Jake, please, let me go. I let out a frustrated breath and released her wrist. Fine, but this isn't over. She nodded once. Then, without another word, she turned and walked away. And I just stood there, watching her go, knowing that if I didn't do something fast, I might never see her again. The decision I made that night. I drove home, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard they ached. Daniel was dangerous. I knew that now. And Emily? She was in more trouble than she even realized. I needed a plan. I needed to find something on him, something that would make him back off forever. So I made a decision. One that would change everything. I was going to follow Daniel. I was going to dig into his past, and I was going to find out who the hell he really was, even if it meant putting myself in danger. The hunt begins. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Emily's face, her trembling hands, the panic in her eyes when Daniel texted her. I saw the photo of her sleeping, proof that he had been watching her for months, maybe years. And worst of all, I saw the moment she said, "If I leave, he'll ruin me." Those words haunted me. Emily was trapped, a prisoner in a relationship she never chose. And I wasn't going to let it happen. I had made my decision. I was going to stop Daniel. The stalker becomes the stalked. I didn't know exactly what I was looking for, but I knew where to start. Daniel himself. So the next day I followed him. I wasn't a spy, and I wasn't some kind of detective, but I had watched enough crime documentaries to know how to be careful. I stayed at a distance, never too close, never too obvious. And what I saw, it made my stomach twist. Daniel wasn't just some normal guy. Everywhere he went, people respected him. Or rather, they feared him. At the gym, he never waited for a machine. The trainers let him cut in line. At the coffee shop, the barista didn't even ask for his order. They already knew. At his office, his co-workers whispered behind his back, eyes darting away whenever he walked by. Daniel wasn't just controlling Emily. He controlled everyone around him. And I needed to know how. Digging into his past. That night, I did something I probably shouldn't have done. I hacked into Daniel's life. Okay, maybe hacked is a strong word, but I started searching. Social media, old news articles, employee records, anything I could find. And what I found, it made my skin crawl. Daniel didn't just appear out of nowhere. He had a history, a pattern. 3 years ago, in another city, he had been engaged before. To a girl named Rachel Carter. I stared at her picture. She looked just like Emily. Same hair colour, same soft features. And then my heart nearly stopped. Rachel had gone missing. The missing fiancé. I dug deeper. Rachel and Daniel had been together for 2 years. Then one day she just disappeared. No trace, no goodbye. Her parents filed a missing persons report, but nothing ever came of it. Daniel told the police they had broken up and that Rachel had moved away. But there were no plane tickets under her name. No change of address forms, no activity on her bank accounts after she disappeared. Rachel Carter vanished into thin air. And now, Daniel was engaged again. To Emily, a girl who looked exactly like the last one. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just control. This was something far worse. I had to tell Emily, but first, I needed proof. The break-in. There was only one place where I knew I could find it. Daniel's apartment. I didn't want to do it. I knew it was insane. But if Rachel Carter had really disappeared because of Daniel, if Emily was in danger, then I had no choice. I waited until Daniel left for the gym that night. Then, heart pounding, I walked to his building. Emily had told me once that Daniel never locked his balcony door because he thought no one would be stupid enough to try breaking in from there. Turns out, I was that stupid. I climbed the fire escape, my hands shaking as I reached the 3rd floor. His balcony was right there. I took a deep breath, and I stepped inside. What I found inside, Daniel's apartment was spotless, too clean, too perfect, like no one really lived there. I moved quickly. I didn't have much time. The first place I checked, his office. And that's where I found it. A locked drawer in his desk. I yanked it, didn't budge. But I noticed something. There were scratches near the lock, like someone else had tried to open it before. Emily, Rachel? I didn't have time to think. I grabbed a letter opener from the desk and jammed it into the lock. Click. The drawer slid open, and what I saw inside made my heart stop. The files that exposed him. Inside were dozens of folders, each one labelled with a name. I flipped through them, my fingers shaking. Rachel Carter, Emily Parker, Sophia Martinez, all women, all ex-fiancés. I grabbed Rachel's folder first. Inside were printed out emails, screenshots of text messages. He had been tracking her, just like he was tracking Emily. Then, at the bottom of the folder, I found a single Polaroid photo. Rachel, eyes wide, face pale, and behind her, a shadowy figure. I flipped to Emily's folder. My breath caught in my throat. Because inside, there were already wedding plans. Daniel wasn't just controlling Emily. He was planning her future, whether she wanted it or not. The moment I almost got caught, I heard the front door unlock. My heart stopped. Daniel was back. I shoved the folders back into the drawer, locked it, and darted toward the balcony. Footsteps echoed through the apartment. I slipped out just as I heard him enter the office. For a moment, I thought I was safe. But then, I heard him laugh. "You really think I wouldn't notice, Jake?" My stomach dropped. He knew. He knew I had been here. And now, he was coming for me. The final confrontation. "You really think I wouldn't notice, Jake?" Daniel's voice sent a chill down my spine. I was still standing on the balcony, one step away from escape. But now I was trapped. Slowly, I turned around. Daniel stood inside his apartment, leaning casually against the doorframe. His eyes were cold, calculating. And worst of all, he was smiling, like he had been expecting this. "You should have stayed out of this," he said, stepping closer. "You really thought you could snoop through my stuff and walk away?" My fists clenched. I wasn't going down without a fight. "I know what you did to Rachel," I said, my voice steady. His smirk didn't waver. "Rachel," he repeated, tilting his head. "Oh, right, my ex. Such a shame. She just disappeared one day, never even got to say goodbye." My blood boiled. "You killed her." Daniel chuckled, shaking his head. "Killed her? No, Jake. I didn't kill her." He took another step forward. "She killed herself." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. "You're lying." "Am I?" He shrugged. She couldn't handle the breakup. Couldn't handle being without me. I tried to help her, but in the end... He trailed off, feigning sadness. I saw right through it. Rachel hadn't killed herself. Daniel had pushed her to the edge. And now, Emily was next. The fight for Emily. Emily knows the truth, I said, watching his reaction. For the first time, his expression darkened. She told you that? I had him. She knows you've been watching her, controlling her, and she wants out. Daniel's eyes turned to pure ice. That's not her choice. Rage exploded inside me. The hell it isn't. I took a step toward him. She's not your property, Daniel. You can't just keep her like some... I didn't get to finish, because the next second, Daniel lunged at me. I barely had time to react. His fist slammed into my jaw, sending me stumbling back onto the balcony. Pain exploded through my skull. But I didn't go down. I wouldn't go down. I swung back, landing a punch straight to his ribs. He grunted, but didn't stop. He grabbed me by the collar, slamming me against the railing. For a split second, my feet left the ground. I felt the cold air behind me. One wrong move, and I'd go plummeting 3 stories down. Daniel pressed me harder against the edge. You should have just walked away, Jake. He hissed. His grip tightened. And then, a loud crash. Daniel turned, and that's when I saw her. Emily makes her choice. Emily stood in the doorway, her eyes wide with horror. She had smashed a vase on the ground, probably to get Daniel's attention. Let him go, she whispered. Daniel didn't move. Emily, go back inside, he said, his voice eerily calm. But for the first time, she didn't listen. I said, let him go. Her voice was stronger this time. Daniel's jaw clenched. You don't understand, babe. He's trying to ruin us. No, Daniel. She took a shaky breath. You already ruined me. Daniel's grip on me loosened for just a second, and that's all I needed. I twisted out of his hold, slamming my elbow into his gut. He stumbled back, cursing. Emily ran to me, grabbing my arm. Jake, we have to go. I nodded, but Daniel wasn't done. Emily, don't do this, he growled, standing up straight. You know you can't live without me. Emily's fingers tightened around mine. Then, with tears in her eyes, she said, watch me. And we ran, the end of Daniel's control. We didn't stop until we were far away from his apartment. Emily was breathing heavily, her hands still shaking. We need to go to the police, I said. Now. She nodded. That night we told them everything. The stalking, the threats, the files I had found, the missing women. At first, the police were skeptical. But then, Emily pulled out her phone and showed them the picture Daniel took of her while she was sleeping. That was enough. Daniel was arrested 2 days later. And as it turned out, I wasn't the only one investigating him. Rachel Carter's parents had never stopped looking for her. With Emily's testimony and the evidence we found in Daniel's apartment, the police reopened Rachel's case. And that locked drawer? They found even more. Daniel hadn't just stalked Emily. He had done this before, to multiple women. Emily had almost been his next victim. But not anymore. She was finally free. The aftermath. Weeks passed. Emily moved to a new city, a fresh start. We still talked, not as lovers, but as survivors of the same nightmare. One day, she called me. Jake? Yeah, I wanted to say thank you. I smiled. You don't have to thank me, Em. She paused. Then, in a soft voice, she said, I think, for the first time in a long time, I can finally breathe. And that was enough, because in the end, this wasn't just about confronting an ex. This was about saving her life. The end.